Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there. I'm your host, Rudo, joined as always by AJ Haefele. Coming at you today, it's a topic we've danced around a lot. We've kind of talked about which opponent each of us would like to see the Avs play in the first round, but we haven't really dug deep into the why. So we figured we'd get into that a little bit today for the Avs. Realistically, I think there are 3 opponents you can expect for the Avalanche in round 1, maybe 4 if you're being generous to San Jose. But if the Avs end up taking the #1 seed and playing the 4 seed, it looks like it's going to be St. Louis or Arizona. And if they end up in the 2nd seed, it's almost certainly going to be Minnesota. So
true facts.
Those are the realistic opponents for the Avs in round 1, which is fine, I guess. AJ and I have been pretty steadfast in our belief that the Avs shouldn't be afraid of anyone anywhere in the playoffs, but the way you approach a series with each of these teams could be significantly different. Should we start with the 4 seeds or the Minnesota and the 3 seed, AJ? What do you want to start with?
Let's start with the peasant class.
All right. I think we can agree that Arizona is the peasant of the peasants.
I think specifically against the Avalanche.
Yeah.
It's tougher to find a matchup that you're more comfortable with.
For sure.
Based on their postseason series last year, based on the 6-1-1 that they went against the Coyotes this year. 10-2-1 in their last 13 games doesn't really give you a whole lot of confidence here.
Well, and even across that series, look at what puts the Avalanche in trouble. One of those losses is incredibly bad luck.
Yeah, they had the 3-2 game where they have scored all 5 goals. They have an overtime loss, and the other loss was in game 2 of the postseason series.
Getting goalied, essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Where Pavel Francouz was in that game.
Yep.
And if you go and you look, a large number of these games this year got played with
backups in net. Yep.
The Avs did not run out Grubauer for all of that series. They picked their spots. It wasn't like Anaheim where they used Anaheim as their ultimate, we're taking our chances with the backup tonight, fellas.
They felt confident in running it out against Arizona for sure. And I think that's one of the biggest problems for Arizona this year, and honestly over the past 3 or 4 years now. They can't keep a healthy starter.
Yeah, so this is where that's where Arizona could make you nervous, right? If they make up ground, sure. If you're conjuring up reasons to be what about where's the path to victory for Arizona? Yeah. You can't sit there and say it doesn't exist. Because the Avs could go into the playoffs. They between injuries and just plain old bad hockey luck and underperformance, they could absolutely they could absolutely choke that series away.
Look, Tampa lost to Columbus in a sweep 2 years ago. It happened.
Yeah, and for the record, if you go back and you look at that Columbus team, it was pretty jacked.
It was definitely the team that was expected to outperform its seed in that playoffs for sure. But
it was not a traditional 8th. It was funny because that was the wild card chaos squad season.
Yep.
And Columbus, Colorado, Dallas, and I think Carolina.
Yep.
And it's you look at those teams today. Dallas went to the Cup Finals last year, beating Colorado in 7 in the second round, and Carolina, I think, also got to the second round last year.
Yeah. They Did they go to 7 or 6 in round 2? I forget. Anyway,
I am so I was trying to even remember the playoff matchups last year.
That was 84 years ago.
Yeah,
so,
and I just couldn't do it. I was like, nope, I have no recollection of this at all anymore. But no, it's like you look at those teams then, and then you look at them now, and you're like, oh, that was
turns out they were pretty good, eh?
Yeah, that was a precursor to some stuff happening.
Yeah.
But with Arizona, your number one fear is that Darcy Kemper is healthy.
Yep.
And they are 1-0 games, 2-1 games.
The Avs offense is hampered by injuries, and it just kind of dries up on them, basically.
Yeah. Not even injuries, but they get the top line is the only one it's like the first month of the season, right?
Yeah.
Where they can get
the bottom 6 just doesn't exist offensively at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, great. You've suppressed shots, but you've driven no offense.
Yep.
Cale Makar has the same kind of slow start that he did to the season.
Yep.
Where the offense, it was just sort of a perfect storm of things happening.
Yeah,
I did get my second shot yesterday, and I am feeling sick today. So I'm battling through the elements.
He's playing hurt.
Yeah.
It's just the thing about Arizona is their offense just isn't that dangerous.
Yeah.
Nobody really scares you. Yeah.
Garland, Clayton Keller.
An aging Phil Kessel.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, the thunderbolt that has kind of jolted them back to life here recently has been Michael Bunting.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael Bunting has the greatest month of his life. I'm old enough to remember when Brandon Yip did the same thing for the Avs.
Had one great month.
Yeah.
Made a multiple year NHL career out of 1 month.
I remember that. He scored a bunch of goals.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, the Michael Bunting thing is great right now. It's fun to watch and all that, but is this going to be for real or,
Certainly, dude, I hope it's for real. He'd be the ultimate Cy Young candidate right now. 7 goals and 1 assist in 11 games.
All the years of, what's his face down there? They've had some great Cy Young candidates over the years because of all the Grabner years.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But when you're back to, when you're talking about a first round matchup that could go poorly for Colorado,
yeah,
it really it starts with goaltending. It's gonna be goaltending. It's gonna be Jarro Halak against the Capitals and
just drag a team to competitiveness.
Yeah. Even though they could be getting shelled in shots, it'll be 42-17. It's going to be 2-1 final score.
Yep.
Because a guy gets absolutely locked in and refuses to cede ground, and that's the fear with Darcy Kemper. Is that he's absolutely a guy, based on how he's played over the last couple of years, he's absolutely a guy that you could be like, well, this is exactly what we're afraid of, is this guy getting crazy and shutting you down. And they get just enough offense. Garland, Keller, Kessel,
yep,
I guess Michael Bunting, et cetera, whatever. They get just enough offense that they slip through and then rinse and repeat.
It's
not gonna get them into a third round, but
even it's just such a tough sell. Even that, given the way we've seen the series play out.
Well, when we saw last year, do you remember last year there were a whole lot of after game 2?
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, it was after game 3.
The one they won. The concern that this was repeatable, sure.
Yeah, it was like, oh man, it's only 2-1, and they've only dominated 2 of the 3 games and blah 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 blah, and it was like we'll see, right? Like, sure, you could envision this doomsday scenario where you don't want to say it's impossible. It absolutely lives, it exists.
But then the Avs dropped 2 touchdowns on them last year.
Yeah, but then like the breakthrough happens, and like we remember that series, like them walking away.
Yep.
And then like this season series has happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was very vocal and adamant that going into a postseason, I don't care very much about how a season series plays out. But in previous years, that's because it's like 4 or 5 games spread out across 6 months.
It's not
the Avs,
8
the Avs
games set. Yeah.
The Avs have played Arizona 8 times in the last 3 months. If they see them again next month, it's not going to be a significantly different team.
Yep.
If 4 weeks from now they match up in the postseason in round 1, it's not going to be like life-alteringly different. You know, and barring major injury from either club, of course. And that's also something to keep in mind. Like the Avs were able to take advantage of Prosvetov and Aiden Hill in net.
Yep. It's the other side of the coin is you don't want to put it out into the world, but significant injuries to key players on the Avalanche completely changes the shape of what expectations are.
Look, if Nathan McKinnon goes out and shreds his knee on Thursday night in the first game back and he's done for the year, I mean, we're having the same kind of eulogy that the Nuggets had to have for Jamal Murray.
Yep.
You know, because it's just like, okay, well, this is probably not going to happen now.
Yep. And that's just reality, but you roll with those punches as they come. There's no predicting any of that side of the game. So you can only do so much when it comes to that aspect. But the thing with Arizona is, and honestly, this is true of a lot of teams, their defense doesn't scare me.
So the only defense, there's really only 2 or 3 defenses in the NHL that I would be quote unquote worried about.
Sure.
Vegas has one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota has another one. And that might just be the fact that I have given Minnesota's defense all of the respect over the years.
Yep.
I think Jared Spurgeon is this generation's most underrated player.
We watch Matt Dumba tear up the Avs on the regular.
Yeah, and like Ryan Suter is still a quality player.
Yep.
You know, like that defense can do some things, man. Like they are, it's just so good. But Arizona's like, it's Jacob Chikrin, who is legit a breakout star.
Has absolutely broken out. Yep.
But then like OEL is massively overrated.
Yep.
Comically overpaid, like just really isn't very good anymore. Or just hasn't been for the last couple of years. Yep. And
too old and not the same Hjalmarsson.
Yeah, well, Hjalmarsson and Goligoski and Jason Demers, and it's like
a bunch of like older bit pieces. Yeah.
This was a great defense back in 2014. You know, like, oh my goodness. But it's not 2014.
Yep.
So that's not a unit that makes me nervous at all.
Agreed.
And to be honest, like Arizona's forward core doesn't make me, there's nothing there that makes me nervous.
Yep.
Connor Garland is great, and I like watching Connor Garland, but the Avs have specifically swallowed him whole this year. They have had no issue shutting that little fella down.
You watched that offensive unit plus Taylor Hall get bodied in the playoffs last season.
Yeah. Well, and then they come back this year, and they're even more inept against the Avs. The Avs got better defensively and just shredded Arizona this year in their season series.
Multiple sub-20 shot games for Arizona.
The Coyotes had legitimately one respectable outing against the Avs this year.
Yep.
Otherwise, in 8 games, 7 of those, like, whew.
Not good.
So, I'm not concerned about Arizona. I've talked a lot of trash about the Coyotes. If that's the first round matchup, I think it's the safest, right? It's the one that you're most comfortable putting them in the next round.
Cheers to our guy Ian in chat. Always happy to have a fan of an opposing team that's willing to talk hockey. We appreciate you in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had other Minnesota fans that were in here, but they couldn't
hold it together.
Yeah, like they couldn't figure out how to be respectful for 10 seconds.
Yep.
Like, it's okay. I get it. If I rolled into a Minnesota YouTube channel and was listening to them talk about the Wild all the time, I would probably be like, okay, well, I'm going to up the asshole mode here.
And then you'd get banned and you'd be like, cool.
Yeah.
Moving on with my life.
Like, all right, well, let's see what else the internet has to offer me.
We could take our first period break with Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get 8 different kinds on tap down at the DNVR bar. Highly recommend you check that out. Also, check out their seltzers. Use the Breck Beer Locator online to find them in a local liquor store near you. Highly recommend all of their stuff. Absolutely delicious. We're also sponsored by Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD-infused coffee that has really changed lives. You can get it at StravaCraftCoffee.com. Get 25% off your first order with code DNVR25. It's been known to help with many different aches and pains, migraines, IBS, joint pain, all sorts of stuff. So if you haven't tried it yet, now is a great time to get on it. Also, check us out at thednvr.com. Consider signing up for an annual membership. Look, I don't want to toot our own horn too much, but we are the best sports coverage in Colorado, and I don't think it's particularly close. We have, obviously, the YouTube channel. We have a bunch of amazing written content. Nuggets, Rockies, us here are the Avs, of course, Broncos as well. We even cover rugby, some other things too. So
I will give us that credit. I feel like our coverage is the best multimedia platform out there.
We have podcasts, we have videos, we have written articles, we do live audio. It's all sorts of awesome stuff. Who is the best ping pong player at DNVR? I don't even know.
I don't know. We should actually have an off-season tournament.
Have a little ping pong tournament.
This is the shit that we should have done during COVID.
Straight up.
When nobody was doing anything and anybody would have watched anything, we should have been. We should have been streaming us playing ping pong.
DNVR ping pong tournament on Twitch would have raked in views for sure. That would have been a killer. Yeah, we have merch. Shout out D-Line Co. Our merch is incredible.
Also, P.S. Also, our guy Blaze.
Yeah, who's the other half of D-Line Co.
He is indeed,
dude. I'll cast. What we found out over the COVID break was I'm the sports caster at DNVR. Apparently, at least the esports caster.
Yeah, I don't like play-by-play. You guys can see what's happening on screen. I don't need to describe it to you.
Slacker. You're a slacker, AJ. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. On that note, be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube video. That really helps us out a ton here on YouTube. You can always catch us there live or after the show. And if you prefer to listen to the podcast version, that is always up as well. So, Arizona, kind of the bottom of the totem pole. The one, if you were going into it, you would probably pick Arizona for the Avs to play. I think we agree on that.
Yeah, and I would pick Colorado today. If it were happening today, I would pick Colorado 4-1 in that series.
You give them the game 5 because
I would give them a game somewhere
because it's a 7-game series and hockey happens. Yeah,
it's just too hard, man. NHL teams are too good.
Yep. Let's move on to the other potential 4 seed, which is St. Louis.
Not gonna give a lot of time to San Jose here.
Do you want to talk? Look, San Jose is 4 points back of St. Louis for the 4 seed, and St. Louis has 2 games in hand on them.
Yeah. The big thing going against St. Louis remains their schedule.
St. Louis does have the most difficult schedule left. Yeah,
it's all Colorado, Minnesota, Vegas. So, like that is a tough go.
Yep, and
because if they're going to make the postseason against that schedule, they've earned it, and that's what makes you nervous about them.
Even then, St. Louis is 4 points behind Arizona, and they only have 1 game in hand on Arizona. So it just feels like a mountain to climb for San Jose.
Their inability to beat Arizona
doesn't help. Yeah,
has been so weird. And I think this is also the part where we, from a Colorado perspective, have struggled with the Coyotes in particular.
Yep.
Because we've watched the Avs thoroughly dominate Arizona over the last, what did I say, 13 games that they played?
Yeah. And Arizona won their season series against St. Louis.
Yeah.
So
this has been the struggle for us, is that we see Arizona through the lens of how they perform against the Avs, and it's obvious that the Avs have their number. Like, they are built to rock Arizona specifically. They house them, but for some reason, like, St. Louis can't get past those guys. And it's like, what is it about Arizona specifically, about that matchup, that makes it difficult? They're not stylistically really all that similar. So what is it that Arizona does that gives St. Louis problems? And because we always look at St. Louis as like danger.
Mm-hmm.
But the Avs are 3-1 against the Blues this year.
Doing just fine. Their one loss was the opening game of the season.
The first game of the year.
Yeah.
And they responded to that with an 8-0 win.
Yeah.
So I'm tonight should be was supposed to be, I think, game 6 against the Blues on the season.
Yeah, because 5 would have been Monday, yeah. Or Sunday, yeah.
So 5 or 6. Yeah, either way. We're at a point where we just don't really know this matchup that well. Because, like Randy's already getting into in the chat, St. Louis has a reputation for playing a heavy game. And, like, that's Colorado's great weakness, right? That's their... That's like the thing that they have.
It's sure. It's
like
it's
Colorado's Achilles heel, right? Like, theoretically, like, that's been everybody's big problem with Colorado, is that they aren't tough enough.
Sure.
They aren't gritty enough. They aren't physical enough.
This conversation comes down to me consistently, who can impose their style of hockey on the current game. Right? Because if St. Louis imposes that heavy hitting style and slows the game down, you'll see the Avs start to struggle. But if the Avs maintain puck possession, keep up their play, and force it on the Blues, you get 8-0 blowouts.
Yeah.
So the pendulum can swing either way there, certainly. And the conversation, as we've just completely ignored the Sharks here, because that's what we're going to do. the conversation with
the Sharks are scary because they have some dudes, and if they get crazy pants hot, it means all of those dudes are locked in.
Every single thing the Sharks do is completely undermined by having Martin Jones in net, though.
Well, and if they make the postseason, then Martin Jones got hot.
Sure, but
like Martin Jones, if Martin Jones rediscovers the form that was the first 5 years of his career, we forget Martin Jones was a good goaltender for a number of years.
You now have a track record of 3 straight years of not that, though. So
I'm just saying,
yeah.
But there was also a track record before that of the guy being good. Before he ran, and he didn't get old. He didn't have a major injury. His wife didn't leave him. There wasn't any major life event that triggered Martin Jones into being bad.
Yeah.
So in the same way that it could just be well, Martin Jones is bad now, he could flip the switch and be well, I'm going to be really, really good in the next 2 months.
And that's true of any goalie to a certain extent.
Yeah, it is. And that's the fear of Martin. That's Martin Jones's best self is better than a lot of dudes.
Yeah. And to tie this back into St. Louis, I think their biggest question is, who the hell is Jordan Binnington?
Yeah.
Is he the good Jordan Binnington that won them a Stanley Cup? Or is he the mediocre Jordan Binnington that he's been with flashes? Or is he bad? He's shown to be any of those 3 dudes on any given night.
Yeah, I think more... I don't know. He's just been okay.
Yep.
And a 7-game series, you could see all of the Jordan Binningtons.
Yep. Agreed. It's a stark lack of consistency. I just pulled up his game log. His last 3 games are an 897, an 857, and a 960.
Are they 1 and 2 in those games?
They are 1 and 2 in those games, indeed.
The 897 could have gone either way.
It could have. But then the next 3 games after that are a 980, a 929, and a 923. A 3-game stretch, a 4-game stretch of brilliance. And then an 875. It's just there's no consistency to him.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have those stretches. Goalies regularly are going to have those stretches.
Sure. Where
they're, you'll have an 860 game or whatever.
But it's just
that's perfectly normal. It's just that his stretches this year they've been 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, right. It's not the one-off games exactly.
Yeah, it's not oh hey, he had 3 games of 920 and then he had an 880 and then he had 3 games of 920, where it's okay, well he's consistently playing better than not. It's that he has as many bad stretches as he has good stretches. Well,
it's also he's a 100% a goaltender of extremes. Look at opening night and the following: 963 on opening night and 833 in game 2 where the Avs dropped 8 on him. He follows up that 833 with an 846. Awful. And then he follows that up his 4th game of the year with a 974. There is no 920. There's
not a 920 where he's giving up where he gives up 3 goals on 27 shots.
Yeah. He's either throwing a 1-goal or shutout game or he's giving up 4+.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the lack of his, I don't know. He is both their biggest strength and weakness at times.
Yep. I think that's a great way to sum it up, is when he's on, he can absolutely bail him out. And when he's off, they're losing games because of him.
I mean, hell, you look at the last game that they played.
Yep.
The last Avs Blues game, and we saw Binnington in that game. Didn't play particularly well.
Nope.
And then got to the third period, and it was like...
And kept it a hockey game, yep.
All of a sudden, like the level just got raised several notches. And instead of the Avs being able to put them away early, he makes a couple of great saves, and we saw how that that game got close by the end.
Yep, it can turn on a dime, I suppose. Which Jordan Bennington you get on any given night,
and in a 7-game series, man, just
right. You never know, but how repeatable is it? And I think when you look at the rest of the Blues lineup, outside of a couple of oddities that I just refuse to believe that David Perron can keep doing this forever.
Like, I totally think David Perron can continue this through the end of the year. But
sure. Moving
into next season, it's like, I'm not just going to assume he does it again. Like, we're going to assume that Nathan MacKinnon continues to be a top 10 player, probably top 5 player. We're going to assume that Mikko Rantanen is a point per game guy, that Landeskog is good for 25 goals and 35 assists, maybe 40 assists in an 82 game season. We're going to make certain assumptions because of how old guys are and their track records and all that. David Perron continuing to be a point per game guy randomly at like age 33.
Hard to see continuing, but
it's just like, if it does, okay, then it does. But is that really the best that they are going to have? And like, when they get into this offseason, it's gonna be like Jaden Schwartz is a free agent.
Yep.
They've got some tough decisions to make, because Colton Parayko is eligible for his next contract on whatever July 1st is this year. Whatever free agent day is this year. And so they have to be careful. They can't just like throw the money at it. It's still going to be a flat cap.
Yep.
So they can't just be like, oh, well, tomorrow's problem, like they have been for years, which is how they lost Pietrangelo.
But, I mean, here is the thing about St. Louis's offense, is I do think, on the whole, as a team, they do a bit of scoring by committee, and it is a reasonably repeatable process for them.
Yeah, they have to do well on special teams, though.
Yep.
Because they're not a good 5v5 scoring club.
Yep.
They have to do well on special teams. If you can shut down their power play, you will beat the St. Louis Blues.
There you go. Hire this man. Simple and easy. Blues power play does sit roughly middle of the league. It's around 20%.
It's not an amazing power play. It's just very, very, very important to their success.
Sure.
Because they struggle to generate. I mean, we talk about the NHL as a 3-goal league. They struggle to generate 3 5-on-5 goals. Most teams do.
Yep.
But they're no longer, the Blues are no longer good enough defensively
to win games 2-1.
Yeah, on a reliable basis.
Yep.
In part because of Binnington and the inconsistencies we talked about, and in part because their defense just doesn't have those guys anymore.
Look, I'm sorry, but Torrey Krug is not great defensively.
Yeah, like he's a decent defender. He's always been a better defender than he got credit for because of his size. He got put into that. Put into that box, that offensive defenseman box. He's not Tyson Barrie. Okay?
That's a pretty low bar. Yeah.
Like, well, and Tyson Barrie is like, he's the ultimate like stereotype of an offensive defenseman.
Yep.
Where he gets rolling. He gets rolling on offense, and he does all kinds of good things for you. And he's a dynamic.
Gives a lot of it back
puck
on the defensive side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he's atrocious defensively.
Yep. That's not the reality, but at the same time, look at look at the archetype of the defensemen that sit on St. Louis with a Torrey Krug, with a Justin Falk, with a Vince Dunn.
Yeah, they're all more offensively tilted players.
Their great savior that was supposed to replace a lot of what Pietrangelo brought to them was Colton Parayko. And one, he's been injured a lot this year. Two, when he's been healthy, he's been just okay.
Yeah, he has not taken the mantle the way that we all thought he would.
Yep.
Although it's always interesting when a guy has to raise his level, right?
Yep.
A guy, because he's been a little bit. I don't want to say protected, but
Alex Pietrangelo has always been there. Yeah,
Pietrangelo's shadow covered a lot of ground, is what I'll say.
Yeah, and in any situation where the Blues didn't feel comfortable, it was Pietrangelo getting the call, not Parayko.
Right, and now Parayko was great in that role.
Yep, but now there is no other option.
There's no safety net beyond Parayko. It's like Justin Falk has been better than he has been in most of his career. Torrey Krug has been fine defensively, but he hasn't been anywhere near the offensive guy that they needed. Vince Dunn took a big step back this year. Marco Scandella continues to just be Marco Scandella.
That dude has a role and he plays it to perfection.
It's fine. But this is a team that all over the roster is good to very good.
Yep.
And the dynamic young guys who are supposed to really turn the corner for them and lift up that offense into a new, a different tier. Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas, to a lesser extent, Sammy Blais. They've been all right.
You put it very well. The team is good to very good. There is no greatness.
Yeah. And they were a machine a couple of years ago. They caught fire. They had us against the world. They had the right mentality. They were good defensively, and they got the best out of a goaltender, which is just the world. When you get the very best that a goaltender has to give, you're going to be competitive.
For sure.
I mean, Jonas Johansson is 3-0-1 as an Av starter?
Yeah.
They've gotten the best out of his NHL career, and they won games because of it.
Straight up.
All of these guys are good enough that when they're they get to the league, if you can get the best that they have to offer, you'll probably win games. The hard part is getting that on a consistent basis. If the Avs get the goaltending that they've gotten from Philip Grubauer in the postseason, if they get that, all this talk about St. Louis and all, Arizona, it's not going to matter.
Yep.
If Colorado gets the level of goaltending that they've gotten from Grubauer this year and in the past postseason,
they can beat anybody.
They're completely fine.
Yep. On that note, we can take our second period break with our new partner, Solace Meds. Solace Meds has 4 convenient Colorado locations, one in Fort Collins, Wheat Ridge, one off of Broadway, and one just blocks from the DNVR bar on East Colfax. The coolest thing right now about these guys is they're giving away a trip to Jamaica in this month of April. So why not? Head on over there, check them out at solacemeds.com/sweepstakes to find the rules and get yourself entered to win a trip to Jamaica. Sounds like an absolute blast. They also have 2 locations in Oklahoma City. If you're an Oklahoma listener, you can check them out there. To sign up to win, Solace Meds makes your cannabis shopping experience a delight. You can head to their website, view their menu, order online, pick up at your convenience. It's super easy. That's solacemeds.com, SOLACE meds.com. Misspelled them. That's okay. We corrected it. You can purchase from there. Last time we talked about them last week, I heard a bunch of positive stuff about them from all of our listeners. So you guys already love them. Keep shopping there. keep hooking up our partners. Supporting them is supporting us. We're also brought to you by Haefele Cattle Company. Damn good beef. I know every couple of weeks, and AJ can attest to this, there's an order in the DNVR Slack channel for like, hey, we're hitting up Haefele. Like, who wants in on the deal to get the free shipping for $200?
$200 for free shipping. We just put in a huge
order for
the entire huge group order for the whole company.
Yeah. So
also, I believe Haefele is providing some beef at the bar now.
Correct. You can now, I believe they've arrived, so you can now get the Wagyu beef burger down at the DNVR bar when you come down to visit us. So if you want to try it, come on down to the DNVR bar. It's absolutely delicious. If you haven't had it yet, highly recommend you try their Wagyu beef burger. So they're one of the best sources for farm to table Wagyu beef in the country. Fourth generation cattle farm. They know what they're doing when it comes to this type of stuff. If you want to order from them, you can use code DNVR10 to get 10% off. As AJ mentioned, if you order over $200, you get the free shipping. Lastly, but certainly by no means least, we are brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. They have a bunch of amazing bets. AJ, after favorites to win the cup at plus 350, which is quite a bit lower than they were earlier in the year, but I asked this question a lot. How many other bets are there out there where the favorite you can still triple your money on?
Yeah, I really don't know. Normally you don't get odds that good.
What I'm saying. So if you want to bet on the Avs, there's a great opportunity there. If you're more of a UFC type of guy, UFC 261 is coming up. When you sign up for a new account with DraftKings with code DNVR, you can get 26-1 odds when you bet on the title fight. Whoever you think is going to take home the belt, give them a bet. Bet $5, you win $130. Had to pause to do the math correctly there. $5 for $130. Jump on it, get yourself a bunch of free money, put your MMA knowledge to the test. As I already mentioned, they have amazing odds boost in all of the sports that you could possibly imagine, including esports even at times. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Remember to use that DNVR code when signing up to get the 26-1 odds bet on the UFC. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by that DraftKings Sportsbook. Are we ready to talk about the Minnesota Wild, AJ, or do you want to finish up some things on St. Louis?
I'm good.
All right. So, Minnesota. I think what gives me some confidence against Minnesota is they are currently being led by a rookie in Kirill Kaprizov and a rookie in the season series that has not looked particularly good against Colorado.
Yeah, I think his final season numbers are actually pretty good against the Avs. Obviously the 8-3 win
helped that a little bit,
and the 6-2 win.
A little bit of stat padding in their wins for sure.
Yeah, a little bit of exactly. It's a good way to put it. They still have, and I mentioned that I really like the defense that they have. I just don't
look. The conclusion that we've come to on a lot of these teams is Cam Talbot the answer, first of all? And when you come to the conclusion that every team who's had Cam Talbot as their goaltender in the playoffs is no, how much trust do you put into a rookie goaltender in Kaapo Kähkönen? Not an easy answer there. Because I do wonder about their goaltending. Now, Kapanen had a wicked hot start to the season.
Yeah.
At least his season.
It has chilled.
It has come back down to earth in a meaningful way. With that being said, Cam Talbot looks very good behind that strong defensive team. He's a .922 in 25 games played with a .240 goals against. Those are pretty darn good numbers.
I don't care who's in goal for them that much.
You really don't?
Oh, because I think that they're two sides of the same coin. Like that is a duo that gets you through a regular season.
Fair enough.
That's fine, right? Like they don't get like you ride the highs and lows with those guys, and it's fine. But I don't think either guy is so good, even at their best, that in a 7-game series. I think that the fact that they are as close as they are creates problems in a 7-game series. Like
you don't have your true number one set and forget.
Well, and like it's easy to get in your head, right? If a guy has a bad game 1, Cam Talbot has a bad game 1, and then you go to Capo Kakkonen in game 2. If Kakkonen has a great game,
you have to stick with him. Yeah,
he plays game 3, but then if he has a bad game 3, then what do you do?
Can you flop back? Yeah,
because okay, you stick with Kakkonen in game 4, and then he has a bad game 4. Now you're down 3-1 in the series.
Second guessing yourself left and right. Yeah,
and you don't know what to do in net. It's your classic like what it's just an odd spot to be in.
Sure.
You know, where you can hurt a guy's confidence, you can hurt a relationship with the guy. You know, there are real downsides here to switching goaltenders in a series like that. And when you don't have one, you know, the best thing for Minnesota would be a dude to go and pop off.
Yep.
And just steal that dude. This is my job, and then you just roll with him. For better or worse. If they just both keep like, all right, it's good. You know, all right, they're okay. It kind of undoes a lot of what their roster strength is.
Sure.
And then like in a playoff matchup, you know, this is not 2013-14.
Oh.
The Avs at forward have a significant advantage.
That's what I wanted to get into too, because you have Kaprizov, who has put up good production, but let's take Kaprizov as their best player and take McKinnon as their best player. Remove them from the equation for a second.
Assuming that those are even equal, which they're
not. McKinnon is significantly better, but even beyond that, the Wild's second highest scorer right now is by points, not by points per game, is Kevin Fiala. You also have Zuccarello, who is producing well at a points per game level. But Fiala, 28 points in 40 games. You have Mikko Rantanen, Gabe Landeskog, Sam Girard, Cale Makar, Jonas Donskoy, Nazem Kadri, all scoring at a similar or better rate to their second best scorer. It's just...
They're just not on the same level.
Yeah.
And when you look at center depth, you know, center depth is enormous. Those guys decide playoff series.
Yep.
And there's no answer for Nathan McKinnon. There's no shutdown answer for Nathan McKinnon. It's not like they have a Ryan O'Reilly where they can
hard match,
where they can be like, look, on his absolute best day, he might go even with this guy. Yep. They're just not there yet. Like, and this is the big reason why you and I didn't pick them for the postseason this year, was because we just like Kaprizov has been great. He's had to be great.
Yep.
If Kaprizov wasn't this good, Minnesota wouldn't be in the postseason. Like, they would be fighting it out for fourth place right now. They would absolutely be 10 points worse without Kaprizov being as good as he's been.
Yep, agreed.
You know, like he has kind of been a savior for them in that he's kept them competitive.
100%
almost
single-handedly.
Like Minnesota's going to be a handful 2 years from now. Assuming that, assuming Marco Rossi is still healthy and he recovers and he lives up to that potential. The combination alone, Marco Rossi, Adam Beckman, Marat Kuznetsov, and Matt Boldy.
There's future there for sure.
There are some electric talent, some really high-end guys that are on the way in Minnesota. But I'm old enough to remember when Zach Parise and Ryan Suter signed in Minnesota, and one of the things that they talked about was the great prospects that were there.
And it didn't work that time.
The Charlie Coyles and the Mikhail Granlunds that were there. And those guys all went on to be solid pros. Yeah. But they never hit that next level. If the same thing happens, you're having the same conversation about the Wild, where there's a hard cap. They're going to be a handful. They're going to be a hard out. They might win a first round matchup a couple of years, depending on, how it goes. But they're not somebody that you look at as a cup contender. They have a long way to go to get to that point. They have their holes. Their holes are still too important. This is not filling out a second line, or you need a third defender or whatever. They're in a fine spot expansion draft wise, so they don't have to worry about a major
piece. Yeah,
but the matchup wise against Colorado, we saw it. The Avs blew them out 3 times. And both of the big Minnesota wins, the 6-2 and the 8-3. The 8-3, the Avs were absolutely completely exhausted. They were totally spent. And you see it when big winning streaks end, they usually end in spectacular burnout fashion. They get smoked. And we saw it the Avs. It took the Avs a couple of games to find their legs even after that. They were just tired. And Minnesota destroyed them. And the 6-2 game in Denver, it was kind of the same thing. The Avs were coming off of that really weird Vegas series. They were still in the first week of their coming back from the COVID pause that they were on. Minnesota was playing exceptionally well. And they just rolled through.
There are some other things I wanna touch on there, but chat is talking about the coaching. Guerin versus Bednar, AJ.
Well, Guerin's their GM.
Sorry, yeah, I meant Guerin versus Sakic. Sakic at this point has a reputation in the NHL for fleecing people. Guerin has come into a team 1 year removed from their GM talking about acquiring lizard-like players in Matt Zuccarello.
And it's funny, but some of the things that we criticized what's-his-face for have gone well.
Yep.
The Kevin Fiala deal has been heavily in Minnesota's favor.
Yep.
And Bill Guerin, I think Bill Guerin's done a decent job. He hasn't really done a lot yet. We'll see.
That's kind of where I'm at with it too. Is it's easy to be a decent GM when you get dropped into the position and haven't been doing it for 4 or 5 years.
And when you're coming off of a situation that was seen as extremely toxic,
nowhere to go but up, kind of. Yeah.
And everybody was kind of looking at your organization as burning wreckage when you get there. All you have to do is just show up. Imagine the guy that comes after Jeff Bridich. That guy,
easiest job in the world. Yeah.
That guy's going to get 3 years and nobody's going to give a shit what he does.
Yep.
Just by not being Jeff Bridich, that guy is automatically going to win. It was the same thing for Bill Guerin. he gets to just show up.
Well, then I think the 3-year mark is an interesting one because we very much saw 3 years into Sakic's tenure as GM, a lot of people weren't happy with him. Now, of course, everyone loves Sakic as the Avs GM.
Yeah, I mean, there were Sakic's first couple of years were the most traditional hockey man moves.
Yep.
Like,
go get older, go get veteran presence.
Sign Patrick Bortolo to a 3-year deal. Sign Cody McLeod to a multi-year deal. Go get Brad Stewart and give him a multi-year deal in training camp. Like, okay, well, that didn't work. Go and get Francois Beauchemin and Jerome McGinley in free agency.
Yep.
Lose Paul Stastny in free agency. Trade Ryan O'Reilly for...
Because he wouldn't play ball for the money, yeah.
Big hulking defenseman Nikita Zadorov.
Yep.
Like, some really, like, super traditional old school hockey guy stuff. But once, and we always draw the line here because it's an obvious freaking line.
Patrick Waugh.
When Patrick Waugh quit, the organization changed.
Yep.
And the organization changed right before he quit. What happened in that time? Chris McFarland got hired.
Yep.
The Avs brought in an AGM who had been an AGM for 10 years in Columbus and brought him in and said, okay, we want you to handle the pro hockey side of this stuff, not the AHL stuff. Leave that to Biller. He will continue to do that, which continues to be a source of frustration for us, but whatever. McFarland brings in a different attitude. Suddenly the team is investing in analytics, like heavily in analytics.
Much more stop looking at where hockey was and start looking at where it's going.
Start looking at what vision do you want to imprint? What do you think the team should be, Joe Sakic?
Yeah.
Not what do you think the team should be that Patrick Waugh wants to coach?
Yep.
What do you think it should be? And he said, I want a team that's fast and I want a team that's fun to watch. And so they said, all right, let's go ham on skating. Let's go and do all these different things, right? And they did. They did all of those. They bottomed out and they started targeting that stuff like crazy. They started using an internal process that has been unimpeachable at the pro level. How many poor moves have they made? I mean, the Derek Brassard deadline deal?
They're few and far between, for sure.
Like the Ian Cole move, the Ian Cole for Greg Patterson deal is basically the only like big trade miss of recent time. And there were circumstances to that.
And even then, they ended up dumping Patterson's salary in a pickup of Dubnyk.
Yeah. It was just things changed for Sakic, and he started to implement a certain vision.
Yep.
And with Guerin, we're right at the beginning of that.
Yeah, you don't really know.
There hasn't been like the major decision yet. He hasn't like he got Kaprizov to sign. Great.
Yep.
You know, he I think did the Jason Zucker deal with Pittsburgh right after he came over from Pittsburgh's front office.
Maybe.
And got that first round pick. Great. Like, he's off to a perfectly fine start. They've overachieved a little bit this year. You know, they had the 9th overall pick last year. They use it on Marco Rossi. They're chilling. But where do they go from here? Because where Minnesota is now is not a particularly difficult place to get. You have a couple of nice players, and you're in playoff contention.
Well,
if you look next year, we go back to the old playoff format, and the Central Division goes back to the way that it is. Minnesota is arguably the most vulnerable team. And you get St. Louis comes back next year healthy, and then they're going to do whatever they're going to have whatever aggressive offseason that they're going to have. That's not an organization that ever bottoms out, so they'll be involved. But then Minnesota is still going to have to contend with a Chicago team that's still kind of on the up here, right? A Dallas team that, despite having the worst luck imaginable this year, has been competitive. And, like, I'm not writing off the Stars next year. Look, they're old and they're kind of an odd spot. But, like, Rupe Hintz is broken out for them in a seriously meaningful way. They are an interesting team that is going to get, like, that's just one more team that causes Minnesota problems, right? We were supposed to be talking about playoff matchups and this kind of got future based, but, like, this is, like, Minnesota has a chance here. If they get Vegas in the first round, a team that they've been very strong against in the regular season, they've got a chance. If they get Colorado in the first round, because Vegas won the division, I think it's going to be a 5 or 6 game series.
I mean, two things here. To stick with the playoffs currently right now, I think the conversation with Minnesota is a lot the same conversation with St. Louis. Kaprizov is great, but he's nowhere near Nathan MacKinnon. Where does the high-end star talent come for Minnesota when matching up against Colorado? And I don't see it. I legitimately don't see it. And that is Minnesota's problem going forward for the foreseeable future is what is Kaprizov's ceiling? How great can Kaprizov really be for them? You look at a lot of the pieces you talked about. Matt Boldy, is he really a superstar center? I don't think so.
He's not a center.
He's a winger, sure, but
they tried him at center and
it was disastrous. Yeah,
and they were like, "We need Alex Newhook to fix this."
But my point being, where does it come from then? Is Boldy just a quality winger for them? Can he be a star winger? I don't really know. I know you love Boldy.
Look,
but
I love Matt Boldy, but is he for me, I think he maxes out as a Landeskog level player.
You're slam dunk high-fiving if he's Gabe Landeskog, right? Like,
yeah. Oh my God, yeah, dude. They drafted him like 12th overall?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. They are, I think it was 11th, but it
was 9th, I thought, wasn't it?
I thought that was Rossi.
Maybe that was Rossi. You might be right. I don't know.
But
yeah,
Boldy,
you're right.
Like,
you're right.
Boldy is, I mean, it's Kuznetsov, I think, is and Beckman are the real linchpins here.
They need to get high-end quality out of that.
Yeah. Especially Kuznetsov, dude. Because he is the super electric, dynamic talent that fits into the modern mold of everything that they want to do, right? Yep. Of how teams want to play, of how Colorado has helped reshape how teams want to play.
Very much how Kirill Kaprizov plays.
Yeah. And you drop that guy in there. I mean, Marco Rossi is going to do it. I mean, he's going to be what he's going to be.
Yep.
It starts to be a concern size-wise because Rossi and Kuznetsov are both on the small side. But you could, we're seeing you can get away with that if you balance your roster well enough. It's fine.
Yeah,
they are. I'm not too concerned about they could win a round in this postseason. Look, and there's a world. Hey, if they don't have to play Colorado, if the Blues beat the Avs in the first round and they beat Vegas and they get St. Louis in the second round, Minnesota could easily win a couple of playoff rounds here. It's not that hard to envision how Minnesota wins a couple of playoff rounds and they become the darlings in the NHL, and Dom from The Athletic showers himself in love. It's easy to see that route.
It could happen.
But long term, lots of questions.
Yeah. Still
nowhere
steps to be made. Yep.
There's a reason that they've become the darlings with them outplaying things.
Yep.
Outplaying expectations this year. So
for sure.
We're always going to pay a little more attention to Minnesota just because it's Minnesota and Colorado.
Of course, yeah. But
for the next couple of years, this is kind of cold-blooded, but the Wild really aren't on Colorado's radar.
I don't think it's that cold-blooded. It was very much both teams' roles were reversed 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the Avs were the higher seed in that because they had an absurd regular season, but you knew going into it. There were underlying numbers that told you that.
Well, beyond just 13-14, Minnesota, while they never accomplished the mountaintop, were on the upswing at a time where the Avalanche had one good year and then settled into mediocrity.
Yeah.
So it feels like they've swapped positions in a lot of ways.
Was that I think it's fair to add, was that series win the peak of that era?
Yeah, by a good margin.
Because I know they had other first round wins, but then they saw Chicago in the second round and got smoked, and it just didn't matter.
Yep.
That was that. I think you could argue that was as good as it got for that era of wild hockey. And look, right now the Avs haven't gotten out of the second round. As good as it's gotten has been losing to San Jose or Dallas. Pick one.
Agreed. And that's the fear for every hockey team, right? Is that they never get over that next hump, whatever it may be, whether it be conference finals, cup, whatever.
Well, and it's no easy task this year. Arguably the two best teams in the NHL right now are Vegas and Colorado.
On a crash course, yeah.
And they have to go through each other.
Yep.
Like right now, I think Tampa Bay and Florida are set for a first round matchup, and it's like the 5th and 6th highest point teams in the NHL are playing each other in the first round. Like it's
wild out there.
Dude, it's a bummer. Like it's a bummer, but it's gonna make for an insane postseason.
The playoffs will be nuts this year for sure.
It feels like it's gonna be a lot more good teams than normal.
Yep.
Just the way that it's set up,
especially after the 24 team mess that was last year. Not that I love the 24 team, to be honest, but yeah.
It was super fun. I loved it. And I love that the NBA has adopted the play-in.
Yeah, it's dope.
I think that's so fun.
I love it.
It makes more sense for the NBA than the NHL. I would not want that for hockey.
But don't get me wrong, the overall quality of teams is dropped by something like that at the same time. So
definitely.
The AHL will have one round of playoffs, chat, just so you know. They won't be awarding a cup.
They've talked about it. I don't know that they've actually officially announced anything, but the one round of playoffs is like the thing that we've known.
They could change it. That's true.
So.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
In any case.
I just want to see, look, they just need to get Justin Barron into the Eagles, and I just want to see where that goes.
That's the first step. Yep.
Yeah. A super prospect heavy Eagles team sounds like so much fun to me.
Sweet. Appreciate the love, Ian. I'll definitely have to check out those guys. Yeah, maybe we can hook up and do some stuff. In any case, I guess we're done today, AJ, unless you want any other hype on the Avs being the best team in the NHL.
I'm going back to bed.
There you go. Hope you feel better. Congratulations on the second shot. Can't wait to get mine. Thank you, chat, for watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. We appreciate all of y'all. We will be back tomorrow talking about stuff. We'll probably get into Byram getting off the COVID list and where the Avs stand roster-wise tomorrow. So,
yep, as they return to practice.
Yep.
20 minutes until the COVID protocol list is updated. Assuming no new Avs are on it, then we're good to go.
Yep. So right now it seems like things will be good for Thursday's game. Until tomorrow, I guess we will talk to all of y'all later.